877-3DP Show. Dial us up. Tyler's sitting by. He'll take your phone calls. And we'll settle on our poll question. Brady Quinn will join us momentarily. Mike Golick Jr. in an hour from now, and Ross Tucker from CBS Sports as well. Packers, Lions, Chiefs, Cowboys, Bengals, and the Ravens. As we bring in Brady Quinn, Fox college football analyst, former Notre Dame quarterback. Also the show that precedes ours on Fox Sports, the Two Pros and a Cup of Joe. He's going to be at the Big House. It's Ohio State, Michigan. Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern is when they get started. Big noon kickoff. How would you compare Notre Dame USC to Michigan and Ohio State rivalry?
Well, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, so I've got a pretty good idea of the differences between the two, only because of the nature of both schools, how close they are in proximity, the types of players that they traditionally recruit in both states, the top players. And so it's just an entirely different feel between the two because they're both two Midwest schools. And so it's not a battle of culture where you get that a little bit with, Catholicism and Notre Dame in the Midwest versus like this SoCal laid back, like let's go out and surf. And I don't want to believe in anything or I believe in everything. So it's a very stark contrast between the two fan bases for SC Notre Dame versus what you get in Michigan and Ohio State. I mean, these are, two programs and two schools who know each other so well. There's so much history behind it. Just in regards to even the coaching staffs and all of that. So I would say with Notre Dame SC, there's tradition, there's history, there's both schools kind of honoring, at least used to, I don't know if that tradition will continue, but honoring kind of the differences between the two. With Ohio State, Michigan, I don't feel like either are honoring anything. I feel like it's you against us. And that's all that matters this one day every year. And depending on the outcome, we're never going to forget it for 364 days, regardless of how well our team does in the playoff or even winning a national championship.
Michigan's by the way, 9-2? They don't feel threatening, but, in this game, it doesn't. I mean, we've seen where better teams, better records doesn't matter. How dangerous is Michigan in this game?
I think they're more dangerous than last year. I mean, they're playing at home. They've got a freshman quarterback who oozes with talent and ability, and he started to develop chemistry with his freshman wide receiver, Andrew Marsh. McCauley's coming along. So the passing game has kind of seen more bright spots of late than bad spots. So I would say if you're looking at this matchup, after last year, when I think Davis Warren threw for like 60 yards, and they're playing in Columbus, they were the biggest underdog they've ever been in this rivalry. This year they've got a much better team and should have a better chance of imposing their will and doing what they do every single time these two teams have played over the last 4 years, heading to 5 years. Is Michigan's going to try to make you play this game in a phone booth. They're going to try to win the trenches. They're going to limit the amount of possessions Ohio State gets, and they're going to try to eliminate guys like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and the big playability of this offense and say, we want you to try to run the football and be better than us. We're not going to let you win this game throwing to two of the best players in the entire country who will be first-round draft picks, and we'll see if you can do it.
If he would answer, what would you ask Lane Kiffin today?
I would ask him, what is the one determining factor in where he's going to go next? Like, what's the number one thing you are prioritizing most?
But what do you think it is?
Well, I don't know. I'm not being offered a $100 million contract, reportedly, Dan. So I would say it's hard for any human being to turn down what is generational wealth when you're offered that sort of opportunity.
Yeah, but Ole Miss says they're going to match that. So let's take money out of this. So then
okay.
What does – now, it still comes down to money with NIL and collectives, the roster, all of that. But is this just I can get more talent there? Is he going to not fall victim to, but Brian Kelly couldn't win a national title, in his mind at Notre Dame. So I'm going to LSU where I've got all of this talent. Is that what this comes down to? And is Lane Kiffin going to follow?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at that decision by Brian Kelly, and in retrospect, now you're kind of looking back on it, like, well, that was kind of foolish. But I think there's a stark contrast between Lane Kiffin and Brian Kelly in the sense that, like, Lane Kiffin's willing to recruit. I mean, half the time he's driving around in a nice car with a recruit in the back, they're filming some sort of video. Brian Kelly didn't want to do that. And so if you look at what makes Lane successful at Ole Miss and what can make him successful at LSU or Florida, it's the fact that not only do you just really have to, I mean, you can recruit nationally for a number of players, but you don't have to go too far in that region or in that state before you're finding some of the best players in the country. So if it's not money and it really comes down to your best chance of winning a national championship, I think you'd have to look at the track record of LSU head coaches and say it's probably LSU then. Now, could it get messy? Of course, when you have a governor getting involved with the conversation around the head coach at that institution. But I do think if you look at the track record of Ed Orgeron, Les Miles, Nick Saban, if you're Lane Kiffin and you're saying maybe we've hit our ceiling at Ole Miss, then LSU would be that next job that comes up, and I feel like would give him the best chance to do so.
If USC could hire Lane Kiffin, do you think they would do that?
I don't. Well, let me ask you this: over the last 4 years, all right, Lane Kiffin's record, I believe, just off the top of my head, is like 39-11. He's got 2-1 in bowl games, never won a conference championship, and the highest he's finished in the polls is 11th. It's probably going to be different this year. If you look at Lincoln Riley's record, I think he's 34-17, also 2-1 bowl games. Highest he's finished is 12th in the final poll. How different really are they?
It was brought up to me last night by a college source saying,
I'm asking you the question, like, how different are they?
It feels like Lane overachieved and Lincoln underachieved.
But doesn't it take a job like a blue blood, like SC, then to determine whether someone over or underachieved? Like, it's kind of all upside at Ole Miss, unless you just completely flame out. And that's where if you go to an LSU and you're not meeting expectations, or I'll even throw in another job that he's not up for, but like Penn State. Penn State moved on from James Franklin because they didn't feel like they could win the big game. So what's the next head coach going to be expected to do? Every top 10 game, every top 5 game, they're expected to win because that's what you're brought in here to do. It wasn't to win 10, 11, 12 games and
Did
make the
Penn State make a
playoff.
mistake, Brady, in retrospect? Now you got to find somebody who's better than James Franklin.
Yeah. I would say, one, the timing of it, yes. I didn't feel like that was the right timing to move on from James Franklin, especially the way the team's playing now. They're obviously playing much more inspired football. Last 2 games they've won, and they were even close, previously to that. But it felt like it was a little early to throw in the towel, even though they were on the skid. And I think if you're going to move on from a guy like James Franklin, you better have that next guy like loaded, ready to go, and not be like, well, this is who our top target is. It's like, no, this should be like already done. And I understand there's a lot of ways that this needs to work, and that's probably not the proper way of doing it, which is one of the reasons why I think the timing was terrible. Like, they could have waited till they get to the end of the season. They could have waited to see how things played out. I mean, now it kind of looks like maybe you shouldn't have fired him after, if Matt Rule was your target.
Yeah, but you might be worried he's going to win and then keep his job. It felt like this was booster impatience, and they're like, we're not going to – we got to start winning these games. We're not winning these games, and, the shelf life for him at Penn State was expiring.
But isn't that the truth of what college football is right now?
Yes, very impatient.
It's not run by presidents and ADs.
Yes.
It's run by boosters.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about who's ultimately funding these rosters, it's the rich guy who went to school there that wants to be a part of the process, that probably played fantasy and was like, you know what? I think I can figure this stuff out. I watched enough, whatever recruiting website and seen the huddle highlights, and I think this kid's a really good player. So, I'm gonna put a bunch of money in here. So that's essentially what this has become, has it not?
Talking to Brady Quinn, big noon kickoff. It'll be at the Big House at Ohio State, Michigan. They start their coverage at 9 a.m. Eastern, go to noon Eastern on Fox. I'm not going to name any names, but I was told that there is a school that's getting really good at stealing signs. Now, this isn't a Michigan Connor Stallions. This is actually somebody watching on the other sidelines and legally stealing signs. Have you heard about this?
Well, I had heard about this forever ago, because even when you're a backup quarterback and you're on the sideline, you're trying to steal signals during a game. I mean, that's part of the gamemanship. If I know that we can shift our motion as an offense to something, and I can dictate or predict what your coverage is, of course you're going to steal every sign possible, whether it's from the sideline or from the player. These defensive guys, not the sharpest tools in the shed. So usually they'll be something like, hey, you're like, oh, is that a T for two Tampa? Oh, okay, great. Yeah, we've got you there. Or hey, we're gonna lock it. Oh, so it's man to man because you're locking man to man on that guy. Gotcha. Like, of course we're going to use that to our advantage. Which, by the way, the whole sign stealing thing with Connor Steins in Michigan, to me, was a Pandora's box that no one really wanted to open because there was a lot of teams doing it. I think since Connor Steins has left and he's been more emboldened to talk about it, he's trading this information with other teams, and they were willing to trade with him.
Yeah.
I mean, it is probably the secret to college football that not many people want to address. It's one of the reasons why I think they needed the coach to quarterback communication probably a long time ago when they could have implemented it. To eliminate some of the sign signaling, which would help, right? If you're, communicating it into your player, there really shouldn't be much signing going on unless you're playing up tempo or you get the line and you call play and, you use a double cadence or something of that, nature.
It feels like Andrew Luck is really, really close to being the head coach at Stanford. Like this was almost a prep year for him. What do you think?
It's a big time commitment. I don't know Andrew personally. Obviously, respect him a ton as a former player.
He's got time, doesn't he?
Guy.
What else is he doing?
Yeah, but I also think as being the general manager of Stanford's a huge investment of time too. And if you're trying to raise a family and you got all these things going on, like I don't know, do you want to have to sacrifice essentially raising your kids to raise someone else's? That's what it feels like being a college football head coach is nowadays. When you include that you're not just coaching. You're dealing with recruiting, you're dealing with talent evaluation, you're dealing with NIL and fundraising. I mean, there's a lot of hats that college football head coaches wear. That does he need to invite that into his life? Does he want to? And also, I think there's always this thought too, if you go back to your alma mater and you coach there and everything's going to work out and it's going to be perfect. Well, what if he does and it doesn't work out? And what happens if it flames out? That doesn't kind of tarnish his feelings about it, or maybe how he's.
Oh, I agree. I never hire somebody you can't fire, and we've seen that with basketball with Patrick Ewing, Chris Mullin, Clyde Drexler. You're going to bring somebody back, and there's going to be that day that they go, it's just not working out here.
And I also think there's an element of thought that, like, even though you need to understand the landscape that you're entering into as a head coach, if they're hiring you, it's because things weren't going well. And oftentimes you got to create some sort of change. And maybe you need the outside the box thinking that comes from someone else who's been somewhere else. Like right now, I don't know why Bob Chesney's not getting more interviews or discussion for a major Power 4 head coaching job. Like if we want to keep using Curt Cignetti and the turnaround they've been able to make in 2 years' time, and we're all trying to figure out, well, how they do it. It's like, well, the guy knows how to coach because he did it at lower levels with less resources and less talent and everything else. And he's been able to bring some of the players to Indiana, but also bring a lot of what he was able to do in prior years with lesser teams to have success on a higher level. Why are we looking at Bob Chesney? Like, why? Because he's just done the same exact thing to get to the point of James Madison, and he's continued on what Curt Cignetti did there. And yet, like, we're not hearing as much buzz about it. So I don't know. I think
maybe Penn State. Maybe Penn State. Maybe Penn State.
Penn State would be a job that I think, would make a lot of sense for, again, someone like Bob Chesney, someone like Jeff Monken. You want someone who's been able to build a program that's able to overachieve with less. And those two guys, without a doubt, fall in that category. I know Army's not having as good of a year this year, but go back last year and the season that they had.
All right, I'll leave you with this. Is it better for the Chiefs or the Cowboys to win tomorrow?
Well, I mean, did the Chiefs really have much of an option just because of how much parity and how everyone's
No, best for the NFL. Like the storylines. Storylines.
I think you'd say it's probably better for Dallas, right? I mean, you get two storylines coming out of that. Everyone expects that the Chiefs are going to be in the mix. If they drop one, how many more can they afford to lose? And on the flip side, Dallas kind of getting back into that conversation. And also, it's the Dallas Cowboys. Like Jerry Jones is probably going to say something wild out there. I mean, it could be about football. It could be about Thanksgiving dinner. Maybe he's not a fan of the Thanksgiving meal. I don't know. Maybe you fall into that category. Maybe you're one of those like, it's not really for me. I eat turkey once a year unless it's on a sandwich, So maybe he's not a Thanksgiving guy. I don't know.
Safe travels. You get booed when you go to Michigan, don't you?
Yes, there's a decent amount of booing. I let them know though. I only started one game back in 2005 in Michigan, and we made sure we got out of there with a victory.
Yeah.
So I know it's been a while, but a lot of these young cats don't know history. So it's the young kids that talk trash. The older fans are like, yeah, we can't really say anything. And then Urban walks out there and they all boo him, and then it's like, you can't really say anything to him either. So
and Leinart,
and then the Leinart walks out there. He's like, "Yeah, we beat you when you played you too." So you can't really say anything to him either. So there really shouldn't be any trash talking.
Yeah.
But they're Michigan fans, so they're going to stick their nose up at you, and they're going to make sure they talk down to you and act like they won the national championship last season, even though it was actually Ohio State.
Safe travels. Play nice.
Thank you. We'll do our best. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, buddy. That's Brady Quinn. Big noon kickoff, really big noon kickoff, Ohio State and Michigan on Fox. We'll take a break. Play of the day, phone calls after this.